gives an F about Gideon, the new AI threat detection platform that's being pushed out by the media right now, leveraging a tragedy for marketing purposes?
First AI-driven threat prediction platform for law enforcement. They're flying blind right now. I've got an elite team of engineers from Palantir.
Why do I say that? Although Gideon is problematic, there are already 4 other AI-driven platforms that are targeting you right now in the exact same manner. So we're going to talk about Gideon, we're going to talk about those 4 platforms, and I'm going to tell you what your 2 options are because they're both bad and they demonstrate why this is so problematic and why we need to not only monitor the situation, but try to find a remedy for it as well. So Gideon is this new AI-driven threat detection platform that's supposed to assess pre-attack info. And in case you don't think that someone who's prepared in the form and fashion that we are wouldn't be marked for potential pre-attack, well, I got a bridge to sell you in China. Now, here's the thing. The founder of Gideon is ex-IDF Special Forces, and the program uses hype terminology like Israeli-grade ontology and other things like real-time scenarios and whatever other marketing hype you want to use, but there are some concerns there because I'm questioning what exactly it's going to be searching for when it comes to problematic behavior. Think about that as we move forward. Now, they're selling this program to law enforcement agencies in the hopes that they will pilot it, and it does the usual thing. It skims all of the typical channels for certain types of speech or conduct, including things like Discord, Reddit, gaming chats, or anywhere else where you hang out and have discussions with your friends or affiliates or family or whatever it might be. Now, the big issue here is that these things already exist and already are happening right now, which is what you need to be aware of, because this Gideon thing, although it brought some illumination to the situation, which was good, a lot of people seem surprised by the concept behind it, as if it was new. But in reality, we're already being targeted by all these other entities. So what entities are they? Well, the first one we're going to talk about is Shadow Dragon. And yes, I am looking at my notes because I want to make sure to give you good information. So if I'm looking down, that's why. But also, if you're looking down anyway, you might as well hit the subscribe button down below because it's down there. Now, Shadow Dragon, you can basically look at as doxing at scale for law enforcement agencies, right? So they take your personal info and they build a web of interactions using it. So that way investigators, when they're looking into you or any potential issues that you might be involved in, can easily connect the dots because this network web of all of your interactions already exists. And luckily it's open sourced, public information that they can access because it's acquired through data brokers and doesn't necessarily meet the demand of a judicial subpoena. So you can see why there's some problems there when it comes to how this information is being accessed, and what you assumed was private may not be. Now, another platform that's doing this exact same type of behavior is Dataminr. Now, Dataminr scans X, Facebook, Reddit, and all the other social media agencies, and then reports real-time alerts to law enforcement organizations, okay? And it's been used in other ways than just trying to stop attacks from occurring, such as, keeping tabs on protesters. And although you might not always agree with what people are protesting about, keeping tabs on people for exercising their First Amendment rights is not necessarily what we want our law enforcement organizations to be doing unfettered, right? There's supposed to be a process where you go through and you get subpoenas and warrants and all types of other things in order to access people's personal data and personal interactions. But these companies have figured out loopholes in order to avoid having to go through that process, which is why some law enforcement agencies like it, because they don't have to go through the process either. Now, this particular one, Dataminr, has also been used by media organizations to get their real-time breaking news alerts. And that's how they try to stay ahead of everybody else. So the media also has access to all these things that you thought were private. So be aware of that, okay? Now, number 3 is actually called Babel Street. Now, this one is considered to be a big one in the sense of concerns related to Fourth Amendment rights, okay? Now, Babel Street basically sells your phone's location data to the feds, which is not supposed to be legal, right? But here's the thing. They acquire your phone's location data through data brokers, and so that allows them to get all this, information that they can then put together and say, okay, now based on everything that we've understood here from these sources we've acquired, we can say that this person has been at this location, this location, this location, X, Y, and Z. And that bypasses the requirement for a warrant in order to access somebody's cellular phone location through a wireless carrier, because the carrier isn't actually providing it. It's being provided by data brokers, and that information is being acquired by Babel Street and then provided to its clients. So you can see why this is so problematic, because it's not necessarily legal, but it also is because of the way that it's being accessed, right? Now, it's bypassing constitutional law, and obviously that's never good for any of us, but these loopholes are always going to be exploited at any possible turn. And that's especially relevant to anything that has a profit-driven model now, isn't it? Okay, now the fourth one that you should be aware of is the obvious one, Palantir. Now, Palantir, especially when you look at their programs like Gotham, has a really wide web of access. And so they're basically a large-scale data fusion platform that uses all kinds of data, DMV records, financial records, sometimes social media and commercial records. It just depends on what it is they're trying to access, but they have all of it, okay? And now here's the thing. They use that information to uncover networks, to build target decks about certain individuals, and then to make predictive connections to say, based on this person's activity and the networks they're currently involved in and the way that we've profiled them, there's a high probability that they'll eventually make their way into this organization, which is clearly problematic, which is why they need to be added to some sort of watch list, right? Like, these are the ways that these entities tend to work. And of course, Palantir, with its military integrations, is already being very well utilized for this purpose, but there's nothing saying it couldn't be used against the citizenry just as easily as a foreign adversary, right? Now, it has all of those capabilities, and as long as you can afford the bill, you have access to it. And that applies to all of these different AI-driven platforms. And they are impressively complicated and impressively detailed when you start to actually look at what they can offer. It is insane how detailed they can actually get when it comes to tracking somebody's particular motives even. Not even just movements or actions, but what they're likely to be doing and why, right? So, yes, Gideon's a problem because it's trying to bypass constitutional rights in the same fashion. We're not having to get a search warrant here or trying to get a judicial subpoena. All we have to do is say, well, based on public sources of web skimming that we happen to access through potential data brokers, we have compiled a lot of information about this particular individual that may raise some red flags about how you should treat them moving forward. Obviously, there's problems there. Do we need to figure out a way to assess a threat and to deal with people before they commit atrocities? I would say that would be a good thing strategically, but that's something we have to do within the framework of the law and specifically the Constitution, or else we don't have one anymore. And that's what really matters, because we have to always keep in mind that freedom does not equate to security and safety. We can't have both, and sometimes we have to take the risk of losing some safety and security in order to maintain freedom. And that's just the reality of it. Whether or not you like it doesn't matter. That's the truth. So, what are your two options based on this information? All these companies are doing it already. Gideon is out in the news and the spotlight right now because they're trying to fundraise for their pilot program, off of a tragedy, by the way. But in reality, that stuff already exists. They're not even new. This is happening right now in real time, which is the marketing hype term that they like to use. So, yes, it's problematic, and yeah, they're going to do all the same things, but what are our two options, right? Here's your two options. You're not going to like either of them because they're not good options, but they are what we have access to right now, and then we have to figure out what to do about these problematic organizations in order to eliminate the fact that these are our only two options. You can either self-censor yourself, right? So you can basically decide not to use certain incendiary language, not to talk about certain subjects, not to put yourself in social situations online where you might be affiliated with certain groups or certain organizations that may be targeted in the future or are currently being targeted, right? That's a decision you can make yourself if you want to mitigate some risk. However, now you're self-censoring. And guess what happens when that happens? They've already completed their mission. right? Because that's part of their mission. It isn't just to find targets and eliminate them. It's also to keep people from becoming targets, right? And guess what? If we can just make you stop talking about stuff, we don't have to worry about you as much anymore. Amazing how that works, isn't it? Now, the second option is also not good, but it's also something that you can decide if you care about or not, and that's just being a target. Because, well, yeah, you can say whatever you want, and you can involve yourself with any community that you want, and you can talk to anybody you want in any way that you decide you want to, because you know what? You're an American. You got a First Amendment right, and also you're a human being, and those God-given rights are even more important. So say what you want and do what you want, sure. But you have to then just recognize that you are a target, and you are being profiled, and you are having a web of connections built around you, and you are in these databases in that way, shape, and form. So that's the risks you have to decide about right now regarding, personal freedom of communication and speech, or being a target. And that's about it. That's like our only two real options from the normal civilian's perspective right now, because I can't go in there and just turn off a switch, right? So in the meantime, let's share out this information. People need to be aware of these programs, these entities, and these organizations and what they're doing. Because in general, they're considered to be, at the minimum, unethical, but at the maximum, straight up unconstitutional and illegal. But they sure have their loopholes figured out. So if you're not aware of it, well, now you are. And that means that you have a little bit more in your favor because you have that knowledge that didn't exist before. So sharing this video would be greatly appreciated, because there's a lot of people out there who are surprised and caught off guard by this whole Gideon announcement that didn't recognize the fact that these other entities already exist and are already doing the thing that we're all concerned about. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What do we even do about this type of situation, right? I don't have the answer. All I know is that the two options we have right now are unacceptable. And so we have to figure out a remedy at some point in time, hopefully within the framework of constitutional law that allows us to place limits on the, let's just say, capacity for these organizations to access personal data, right? Anything else you need from me at all, go to magicprepper.com. Make sure you check out the MP Field tool. It's probably the best way to support the channel as of right now, because it's a product that I made. It's made in the USA. It helps anybody who considers themselves a prepared citizen stay in the fight if needed. And at the same time, it goes to support the channel and the country. Being made in the USA, it helps the economy, right? And that's something that I was very adamant about when it came to product design. I'm not gonna order something from overseas and try to make a huge markup on it when I can get things made right here in the US. So, besides that, it's gonna be it for Magic Prepper.